Hey everyone, and welcome to What Did I Miss? The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, just completed its first season, and while it did give us some answers, it left open a lot of possibilities for the characters. One burning question that is still on everyone's mind is the identity of the mysterious man that fell from the sky, who is known simply as the Stranger. The season finale seemed to hint in one direction as to which character from The Lord of the Rings that he could be, but another detail in this finale seems to have been overlooked by many a fan. One that would seem to not only eliminate the most likely answer to the Stranger's identity, but also reveal it. That's right, folks. I'm saying emphatically that the Stranger cannot be the beloved wizard Gandalf, but rather that his actual identity is that of his rival and the leader of the Ishtar, Saruman. So when your resident Lord of the Rings expert tells you that they know the Stranger is Gandalf, you can finally respond,
I know more than you.
But before I get into my reasoning, I want to thank you for clicking on this video and ask that you please hit the like and subscribe buttons to help my channel grow. It does not cost you a thing, but really does a lot to help my videos get out to more people. First of all, let's briefly cover the Stranger's actions so far and why most people assume that he is Gandalf. The Stranger arrived in Middle-earth from the sky and was surrounded by fire when he landed. Many people were quick to point out that this could be the first clue that the character is Gandalf, as he was known to be a master of light and fire. By the time we meet Gandalf in the Fellowship of the Ring, he already possesses the Ring of Fire, which is one of the 3 rings crafted by the elves that we actually get to see at the very end of this season. His prowess with the element makes him immune to fire and also allows him to do cool shit like this.
You shall not pass!
In case you are not aware of all the Tolkien lore surrounding these characters, I will go over some very brief elements of their history to keep this video under 10 minutes. But it is important to point out now that the Rings of Power series only has the rights to the stories and characters found in the Lord of the Rings books and films, plus their appendices. They do not have the rights to the specific works that cover this age of Middle-earth, found mostly in something called the Silmarillion. What this basically means is that this series is able to change the timeline or elaborate on certain things. They are not able to contradict anything from the original writings. That last part is going to be really important as my explanation goes on. Gandalf, as well as Saruman and Radagast, are known as Ishtar, who are basically archangel-like beings sent by the Valor, the beings that created Middle-earth, to help guide the forces of good against the forces of evil. If you are only familiar with the Peter Jackson films, they do not really cover this that much, but this is why Gandalf has magical powers like being immune to fire, and why he can communicate with animals and insects. These are all also traits that the Stranger exhibits throughout the first season, so it wasn't a huge surprise that the Acolytes of Sauron discovered that the Stranger is an Ishtar.
He is not Sauron. He is the other, the Ishtar.
However, it is revealed in the books that all of the Ishtar have these abilities, even if they do not show them off as much as Gandalf. This is because they are known as Maiar, and their physical bodies cannot be killed. Sauron is also a Maiar, who followed the dark side, which is why he continually comes back to Middle-earth in different forms after he is defeated. Another thing about the Stranger that fans have pointed to that could be a hint that he is Gandalf is that when he meets Nori Brandyfoot, he seems to have no memories. Not only does he not know his name, but he does not even seem to understand the language, and he has little to no control over his extraordinary abilities. In the Two Towers, Gandalf returns to the land of the living after falling into the abyss with a Balrog. When he does return, not only is his appearance changed, but he does not remember what his name is at first.
Gandalf? Yes. That was what they used to call me. Gandalf the Grey.
Even though we only witness Gandalf return to life, it is conceivable that any of the Maiar that are revived do not know who they are or understand their purpose when they first arrive. This may be why Sauron's acolytes are searching for him during the first season and are not surprised by the Stranger being disoriented. So again, the Stranger having these abilities and not remembering who he is or why he is there is just another sign that he is an Ishtar and not necessarily that he is the Grey Wizard Gandalf. Then there is the Stranger's affinity for the Harfoots, a race of people that will eventually evolve into the Hobbits that we meet in the Third Age. It is Gandalf's admiration of the Hobbits that will help him find not just one but 2 heroes that help change the fate of Middle-earth. Many fans have wondered if it is this meeting in the Second Age between Nori and the Stranger that forever ties Gandalf to the Hobbits. But Gandalf was not the only wizard to know of the Hobbits, another fact that you may not be aware of if you only watch the Peter Jackson films, as this rather gloomy part of the story was not in those movies. In the books, Saruman returns after his defeat at Isengard and finds his way to the Shire. He almost destroys the Shire until Frodo, Sam, and others are able to drive him out, and it was there that he was betrayed by Grima, not at Isengard. Why Saruman chose to travel to the Shire after his defeat at Isengard was never explicitly stated in the books, but it could have been because of his knowledge of the halflings from the Second Age. But the finale episode of the season really gives it all away in the third act. After the stranger is called Ishtar by the acolytes of Sauron, Nori asks him what it means. He reveals that it does mean wizard and sets both of them upon a path. Then he says something to Nori that is what most people are calling definitive proof that the stranger is Gandalf.
When in doubt, Eleanor Brandyfoot. Always follow your nose.
If in doubt, Enoch, always follow your nose.
But this is not the most important piece of dialogue here, and I really think the writers did this to throw people off.
Wicked, Tracy, first.
While yes, it is correct that both characters repeated the same line, the thing that you should be concerned with is where the stranger states that they are headed.
War has come, but to discover the rest, I know I must go to Rhûn.
The stranger tells Nori that they must go to a place called Rhûn to understand his purpose. Rhûn is a land that is far to the east, and the race of men that lived there were an enemy of Gondor as they chose to follow Sauron in the Third Age. There are also many dwarven clans that live in this region that fought in the War of Dwarves and Orcs, which is shown in part in the film The Hobbit: An Unexpected Journey. But the most important part about Rhûn is that Gandalf never went there. It is stated in the writings of Tolkien that this series cannot contradict that it was Saruman and the Blue Wizards that went to Rhûn, not Gandalf. While Saruman returned from Rhûn, the Blue Wizards never did, which is why they are not featured in either The Hobbit or The Lord of the Rings. So if it is true that the stranger is headed to Rhûn with Nori, then he cannot be Gandalf and can only be Saruman. But this isn't my only speck of proof. Another thing established by Tolkien is that when the Ishtar or wizards arrived on Middle-earth, Saruman arrived first. He was first to arrive because he was thought to be the most powerful of the Ishtar and the most competent leader. This is why he later goes on to lead the White Council and help them defeat Sauron in The Hobbit. It does appear that the stranger is the first of his kind to be seen in Middle-earth, which again would line up with him being later known as Saruman. Another kind of cheeky hint that the stranger is Saruman is how he was introduced in the story. The stranger falls to Middle-earth from the sky in what looks like a meteor or asteroid. In 2008, a German astronomer named Erwin Schwab discovered a new asteroid and named it Saruman, in honor of the character and the actor who played him, Christopher Lee. It would be pretty funny if the writers did this to tease us with a hint as to who the character is in his very first appearance on screen. But I think the most compelling reason for the stranger to be Saruman is that his journey from pure goodness to evil fits most comfortably within the dynamic of the series. The Lord of the Rings is a story about the corruption of this world and its people. Along the way, there are many characters who start off with the best intentions, but as they continue to strive for power, they lose more of themselves. Saruman is possibly the greatest example of this happening, as he was thought to be a powerful force for good, sent specifically to help the fight against evil. Being a fan of these stories for over 20 years now, I have always wondered what exactly caused Saruman to renounce his responsibility and instead turn against Middle-earth for his own gratification. Watching that unfold on screen would be very interesting and provide some answers to one of the biggest questions left over from the completed works of J.R. Tolkien and his family. One thing that Gandalf did mention about Saruman's fall from grace was that he was obsessed with the forging of the Rings of Power, and since that is literally the name of this series,
He said it! He said it!
it would make a lot of sense for this plotline to be included as well. Filming for the second season is currently going on now, and I wouldn't be surprised if Rhûn is a big set piece. Since this area was not well defined in any of the books, the series has more freedom with it. This means there's a good possibility that the Blue Wizards will also be introduced for the first time on screen next season, which would all but further confirm the stranger's identity as Saruman. Since, as I mentioned earlier, it is established that Saruman and the Blue Wizards went to Rhûn and that only Saruman returned. His time there may also give some insight into the beginning of his descent from a being of good to a partner of Sauron. But that is just my theory. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching this video. Please hit that like button if you have enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time on What Did I Miss?